Hey everybody, I am Kevin Iole. Welcome back, and my guest right now, one of my favorite people in boxing, the conscience of boxing, the legendary trainer and broadcaster, Mr. Teddy Atlas. Teddy, appreciate you joining me.
My pleasure, Kevin. Always good to join a good person, not just a good writer, but a good person.
And I have the check in the mail. I know it hasn't come yet, but thank you for that. So I appreciate that. So Ryan
The checks
Garcia,
never come to this address. I don't know why. They never seem to get here. Never.
they fly past somehow, yeah. So on Saturday in Brooklyn, Ryan Garcia does what I think a lot of people thought was unthinkable by beating Devin Haney. Now, going into that fight, and I wrote many times, I said, hey, I'm picking Devin Haney. But I said, if I knew Ryan Garcia was right in the head, this is a really difficult fight to pick. Garcia went out there, knocked Haney down 3 times, won a majority decision. First of all, were you surprised by the way Ryan performed in that fight?
Yeah, I was. I was probably one of the people, maybe not alone, but one of the louder voices saying that the fight shouldn't even take place.
Yeah.
Because of his behavior leading up to it, because of all the social media posts, the way we were led to believe he was in a place that it seemed he was in mentally, in a dire place, possibly a dangerous place, but a place that you shouldn't be in that frame of mind if you're getting into a place that's already dangerous, which is the ring. And so I don't want to keep anyone from making money. But I did say, and I got to be consistent with it because I said it. Can't forget about it now, but the result wasn't what we expected. I didn't think he should be fighting. And I picked Haney to win because of all those things. And of course, we got a surprise.
I wrote the same thing. Last month, I said they should call the fight off, and I called on the New York Commission to give them credit. They did do a test, a mental acuity test on Ryan, and he did pass that test. But I said the same thing too. But two things can be true at the same time, right? He had crazy behavior, bizarre behavior, but yet he performed well in the fight. And he said he was drinking during fight week. He was out partying. He was Monday and Tuesday. He was in a nightclub. He was videotaped dancing. If that's your fighter going into fight week and you see that kind of behavior, what does Teddy Atlas do?
Well, it's going to be a problem. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen the week of the fight because it would have showed itself early and I would not have been involved, quite frankly. I'm not going to walk away once I made a commitment. If that happens close to a fight and I made a commitment, I've been in camp with them for 2 months, which is usually what the camps are, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm not going to abandon him, but I'm sure as hell it's going to be a problem. It's gonna be dealt with, and what the hell are you doing? And it wouldn't have happened because, like I said, that's behavior that would show itself earlier. And it did show itself earlier. He was consistent with this behavior, from 5 weeks before the fight, 6 weeks before the fight, posting all kinds of things, drinking, smoking weed, whatever. So I would not have got involved if we didn't have an understanding that this behavior would not be there going into camp. And when I run a camp, I set a curfew. So the curfew is usually 10 o'clock. You got to be back in your room. On the weekends, I make it a little later. But you part of that curfew, part of those restrictions with that curfew is you can't be going to a bar. Whether you're drinking or not drinking. But you can't be going to a bar. You have to be in a place where you're concentrating on what you're doing and where I can feel that I'm doing my job. So, but I think that you touched on it earlier. I think that he was in a place with where the people around him, where they were going to go along and had been going along with whatever was happening, where I guess you could say not trying to hurt anybody or knock anyone, because Derek James did a good job. He had him prepared from a technical standpoint, doing certain things. Obviously, he did his job pretty good. And Ryan pulled it off. You got to give him credit for that. But it looked like it's the tail wagging the dog. And, and there's no getting around that. I mean, if anybody says anything different, they're not being honest, or they got to go get their eyes checked because they're not seeing what everybody can see. But look, I have a different perspective on this. I have a different look on this. I disagree with the commentator, and I like Sergio Mora a lot. He was a former fighter. He when he was coming up, he fought on ESPN. I caught his fights on the Contender Series. I like the kid, and he does a good job. But what where I disagree was in a certain way was that he said, "Oh, he was crazy like a fox." I'm gonna go a little tiny bit different there, and I'm gonna say that it was not a put on, because when you say he's crazy like a fox, you're suggesting, yeah, you're suggesting that it was that's right, that was planned. You're suggesting that that the whole thing was a charade, was a put on. I don't think it was a put on. I think it was real. I think those issues were real. I think he was lost. I think it was in a fog, a place of uncertainty. People get there. People get there when they're under stress, when they're under, great pressure. And there's no greater pressure, or one of the most pressurized situations in the world is getting into a ring. And the element of fear, the element of doubt, the ninjas can come over the wall real fast, and they do. And you got to be very together. And when you put in with that scenario, with the reality of that, where he's coming off, Garcia's coming off his last fight, being knocked out by Tank Davis, and where some people said he quit, and where there's a lot of doubt about him, about the legitimacy of him, in so many areas, people are doubtful, and he's got to have doubt about himself too. And you're coming from there to fight a top fighter, one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world, Devin Haney. Yeah, you know what? There is going to be a lot of turmoil in your mind, or the possibility of that. There is going to be a lot of pressure, extra pressure. There is going to be, just a feeling, of anxiety, and I use the four-letter word that everybody really avoids in my business. And when you avoid it, you set yourself for a problem, because it's something that you have to have, or you can't win, you can't live, you're not normal. And that four-letter word is fear.
Yeah.
So the fear element is always there, and now it's elevated because of what I just described of
Right.
where he's coming from and what he's going into. And I think that these issues were real. I think that part of it was trying to find the confidence that he could believe that he could deal with this, that he could go into the ring. I think that he was in a very bad place. And I say this for this fight, and I've said it before in life. It's the hardest thing is not the actual doing of whatever that event is, whatever that battle is, whatever that fight is, whether it's the fight of a lawyer going to a courtroom in a tough case, whether it's a fight of a doctor going into surgery, whether it's an actor going onto the stage, whether it's a comedian going, onto the stage, whatever it is. The hardest thing sometimes is to get there. The biggest battle is to get there.
Right.
Once you get there, then it kind of takes over. Then you're there, and then you start doing what you practice to do. You start doing, if you were a comedian, you do what you've done your whole life. You make jokes. But to get there, you can so easily be derailed. You can be sabotaged. You can be hijacked. And as crazy as this sounds, I just did my podcast, so it's going to be out tomorrow. And I talked about this, where there's turmoil, there's fog, there's all this craziness that was going on, I think that he used it to get there. It
Obviously.
became a vehicle to get there. Sometimes you can get to a place by being in a fog, because if you're not in a fog, you're facing what's coming. And you don't want to face what's coming because it ain't fun. It ain't good. It's ugly. It's scary. So if you're in a fog, you can get there without facing it directly. And I think whether you want to call it innate intelligence, whether you want to call it pure animal instincts that we all have as a person, those instincts took over. That stuff happened, and the most important thing is it got him there. And once he got there,
He
the
did what he
battle,
did.
yeah, he just did what he does. The battle was over. The fight for him was to get there, and
Interesting.
that's what I believe.
Well, let's I think you can't overlook the fact that he missed weight by 3.25 pounds.
Oh, that's an element.
And
That's
so I
a
want to
big
get to that.
element.
What do you think of that? What
Look,
impact did that
the
have?
easiest thing to say, I'm taking nothing away from what he did, because I know how hard it is, weight or no weight, to get in there and perform at that level. So I give him credit for that. I give Ryan credit. I applaud him. But I can see where people could say he cheated. And he didn't cheat because he got in there and he fought. He didn't have quarters rolled up in his hands. He didn't have he didn't cheat in that way. But he avoided something that Haney could not avoid and did not avoid. He avoided having to make the contracted weight. He avoided having to lose those last 3 pounds. That's where it can be tricky, because it's not the first 10 or 20 or 15 or 8 or whatever. Those last 3 pounds, he came in 3.2 pounds heavy. Those last 3 pounds, if you're having a difficult weight cut, if you're a big guy, he's a big guy. Yes, I know he moved up from lightweight. I get it. But he's a big guy, and he got bigger. I don't know if he's on a weight program, whatever. But Ryan Garcia over the last couple of years has gotten bigger. If you're having a difficult cut in weight, it's those last couple of pounds that can take it all out of you. That can really hurt you. And Haney had to lose those last 3 pounds, and I think it affected him. I think he looked gaunt. I mean, the eyes don't lie. I've been in this business 50 years.
Yeah.
I use my eyes and my experience. And when I see those hollow cheeks and I see those hollow eyes and I see a little change in the skin tone and that gaunt look, yeah, you know what? I know the guy had problem. He had a hard weight cut. Now, do you replenish? Yeah, you replenish. But do you get back in 24 hours or whatever it is, or less, do you get back 100%? No, you don't. Garcia, he avoided that phase. He avoided that situation. He was fully hydrated. He was 100%, and he actually had more than that advantage, because not only was he prime as far as his strength, that he did not have to deal with any weight cuts, but the other guy was obviously, tainted by it. He was, obviously hurt by it. So the combination of Ryan being so strong and the other guy, being compromised, gives him a big advantage as far. And again, the eyes, when they got in the ring, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you were, if you were a volleyball fan instead of a boxing fan, you would turn and you say, "Hey, that guy's bigger than that guy." That was so evident. He was bigger. He was stronger. Look, he was the better puncher going in. We knew that.
Right.
But he was the much better puncher. He was bigger. He was stronger, and he was faster. And he had all of, and I give him credit for all of that. And I'll tell you another thing, that I think that it actually worked in his favor. and usually this would work to your detriment. Ryan Garcia only fought in spots. He
Yeah.
fought sporadically. Now, I think part of it was, even though he avoided the weight cut, which gave him a superior strength or helped him in that area, I don't think his cardio was at its best.
He said that
I,
in the fight interview that it was.
yeah, I didn't even know that. So I didn't think it was at its best. How could it be? He didn't have a normal training camp. He started whatever. It was obvious that it was going to be hard for his cardio to be at its best, and so I think part of it was him understanding that he needed to slow the pace down. He could only fight, or he only believed he could fight sporadically in spots. So he did a lot of grabbing, a lot of tying up, a lot of moving, a lot of killing of time. Now, normally that would hurt you because it would hurt you on the scorecards. It would hurt you where the other guy takes control of the rhythm of the fight, the pace of the fight, the tempo of the fight. In this case, I'll tell you, it helped him in two ways. It helped him save the gas that he had to save for down the stretch, which is when he really won the fight, when he hurt him so many times, even though he hurt him early in the fight. And that definitely had something to do with the rest of the night, how he hurt him early. But then he hurt him so many times late. So it helped him in that way that he was able to save, his strength, his cardio, and mentally that he felt that he would be okay later on in the stretch. It helped him in that way. But where it really helped him that nobody talked about was it gave him an element of surprise. Kind of like, I'm going to jump around, but Ngannou had a big element of surprise when he fought Fury. Fury did not expect, you got to be ready mentally in my business, not just physically. 75% of it's mental. It is. Ngannou was not mentally ready. Fury was not mentally ready for Ngannou. How could he be? It was the guy's first pro fight. He had no tape on him. He figured it's going to be a walk in the park. I believe we're human. Even though we're professionals, we're all human. I believe that Devin Haney and his father really believed that it was going to be an easy night. And how could they not think part of that? With all the stuff going on, drinking, posting, he's drinking, he's smoking weed, he's with all of that stuff going on. How could he not think that? And even though you're supposed to be a pro, you're supposed to be, you take nothing for granted. Again, we're human. I think that seeped into his mindset, into the camp, and that they really felt they did everything. They trained, they did everything, made weight, but they felt like this is going to be an easy night's work. We're going to go in there, we're going to show up, we're going to go throw some punches, and then we're going to go home. I said on my podcast, I said, to steal a phrase from Floyd Mayweather, they thought it was going to be easy money.
You were.
And that conspired against him because it gave him once the fight started, and of course he got hurt, and then of course he started pressing the fight and everything else. But then when he started fighting sporadically, what happened was he got a false sense of security, where he didn't think he was going to really punch in certain spots because he went 40 seconds, a minute and 30 seconds without punching. And so you start to think, okay, the guy's not going to throw. And then all of a sudden he throws, bang, you get caught by surprise. That actually helped Garcia because if you look at it late in the fight, he did catch him by surprise. Yeah, I know he gets credit for throwing the right punch, the right way, the counter hook, the whatever punch, the right hand, at the right time. But he also, you could see that part of it was Haney wasn't expecting. Haney was thinking only one way. I gotta win this fight now. I got dropped early. I gotta win this fight. I got hurt early. I gotta win this fight. I gotta press. I gotta break him down. And he's just thinking about that. And he's forgetting that the guy is still dangerous because the guy ain't punching. And then all of a sudden, bang, out of nowhere.
On the floor.
So I think that was part of it too.
What do you think of this, Teddy? Because I think, Ryan had challenged Devin, at the press conference, hey, meet me in the center of the ring. And guys say that in bravado a lot of times. Hey, get in the center of the ring and let's throw down and we'll see who the tough guy is. And I wonder if, Ryan got a boost from that when he, because basically the first punch he threw, he connects on the chin and Devin wobbled and was hurt. And I wonder if mentally that really lifted Ryan. Like if Devin would have taken that punch and smiled at him and walked forward, I wonder if it's a different, obviously, like you said a second ago, Ryan threw the punch and he intended to throw the punch and he intended to land it where he did. But the fact remains that if Devin had taken that shot, I wonder if the fight would have played out differently. Do you think that maybe boosted Garcia's confidence?
I think it did two things. I think you're right on the money. I think it did two things, not one. I think it definitely, Ryan needed a good start. If anyone ever needed a good start, Ryan needed a good start. There's no doubt about it. And he got the good start. Very important. Very important. But also, it put Haney on the wrong road. And what I mean by that is the wrong approach. Haney already had the wrong approach coming in. That was not Haney we watched. That was someone else. And what I mean by this, taking nothing away from Ryan Garcia, nothing. He did everything and he deserves credit. But what I mean by that is that Haney is not a seek and destroy guy. Haney is not a walking aggressive guy. Haney is a consummate boxer. Haney is a technically solid guy who, if anything, he's a little cautious. I mean, I know in the Loma fight, he was a little more aggressive. I know in the Prograis fight, he was a little more aggressive. But Haney he's a guy who lives and dies by his jab. He's a guy that sets traps. He controls range. He looks to put punches together, and he's always looking to be cautious from a defensive standpoint, to do it in a responsible, patient control. He's not reckless. He was reckless in this fight. He didn't use his jab, even when he came forward. Barely used his jab. He was a guy that suddenly he was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He was suddenly the antithesis of what got him there. What he'd been his whole freaking career to get to this place. He was a one-punch guy. He was a one-trick pony. He was a guy who's just looking to walk in there, throwing one shot like he was a big puncher. And he's not.
Right.
And he got on the wrong track, partly because of everything that went on, this whole crazy atmosphere leading to it. They thought, okay, we'll go in there, we get rid of the guy. And also when he got hurt. Because when he got hurt, he got desperate. He got desperate, and he started thinking, "Okay, I got to make up for that. I gotta break him down. I got to apply pressure instead of no. I got to do what Haney does.
Right. Yeah.
What he's on. And also, what it did was it dissuaded him. It discouraged him from using his best weapon, his jab, because he got caught jabbing, Kevin. When he jabbed, he reached a little bit and his right hand dropped a little bit. And when he reached a little bit, to the credit of Garcia, he threw his forte. That's his forte. That's his Sunday punch, his counter left hook. He threw a beautiful counter left hook, and with the right hand down and with him reaching in a little bit, he caught him on the tip of the chin and he hurt him.
Do you think Derek might have seen that
message? That sent the message: do not jab.
Do you think Derek James might have seen that on film study and kind of worked on that with him?
I think that Derek James is a good trainer, and I think being that I'm giving him credit for being a good trainer for what I've seen him do in the past with fighters, I would think that I don't know if he did, but I would think that is something that you would work on for two reasons. One, it's your fighter's best punch. Work on it. Use it. But use it. Find a way to use your best punch as much as you can. And the second reason I would think that he would work on it is because he knows that Haney's best punch is to jab. So let's find a way to discourage this guy from jabbing. Let's find a way to use his best weapon against him. Let's find a way to counter his jab.
Which, yeah. And that's what he did. I'm conscious of your time, so I want to ask you two more questions. We'll get out of here. One, I want to, it's a big topic of conversation, the performance of referee Harvey Dock. And I think Harvey is a terrific referee, and he's been reffing a lot of the biggest fights over the last, 9 months to a year. He's gotten a lot of big assignments. I questioned his performance the other day. I thought he was too physical, especially with Garcia throwing him around. I kind of felt like the point deduction, he was warning him for holding a lot, but the hitting on the break, boom, the first time he takes the point off. Also, I thought there might have been 2 other knockdowns in that 7th round. What did you make of the performance of Harvey?
I think it was in line with I'm half joking, but I'm not. I think it was in line with everything else leading up to this fight. Yeah. A crazy moment that was getting away from us. Chaos.
Right.
Chaos. It was consistent with what led up to this fight for the last 6 weeks. Just stuff out of control stuff. Out of control. I think the fight got a little out of control. I know Harvey Dock when he first started, when he first wanted to do this. And so I remember him from way back. And I think he's a good ref. I think he's a conscientious ref. I think he cares about what he's doing. He cares about the sport, which is very important. He takes it very serious. I think he had a bad night. I think that again, that the whatever you want to call it that was in the air, the craziness of the night and leading up to the night, I think it stayed right there and it affected him too.
Yeah, you had one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world get affected by it, and one of the best pound-for-pound referees in the world get affected. Last thing, I did not tell you I was going to ask you, so I'm going to throw this out. And if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But I think people want to hear your opinion on this, and that is, what is your take on the fact that 58-year-old Mike Tyson is going to fight Jake Paul? What? Any thought on that, real quick?
Why? That's my first thought. No, I'm not being facetious. I'm not. I'm being serious. Why? Now, why are you asking the question? Why would he want to do it? He seems to be in a good place in his life now. He's made a lot of money again after he was bankrupt. He's made a lot of money. He's got a good thing going on in his life, it seems like, with Saudi Arabia and with here. And his image is good again. It's been restored. People love him. He's iconic. Everyone thinks he's great. He's applauded everywhere he goes. Why? He don't need money. He don't need fame. Like, why? So that's where I start. And then I give Paul credit. He's living the American dream. He had a vision. He took his 20 million or so followers from YouTube and he took it to this new arena, to this new vision. He worked hard to become a fighter, and he's still working hard. He's still a work in progress, but he respected the sport enough to work at it, not just go in there. He worked at it. It wasn't just a gimmick. Yeah, he picked his opponents well. Yes, but he picked real fighters. Yeah, they were older. Yeah, they weren't, they were older and they weren't pure strikers, some of them. Although Anderson Silva was a hell of a striker as a legendary MMA fight, but he was old. He had an advantage of size, but there was still danger. There was still an element of risk with these real fighters in that arena. And he built up himself to this place where he's made a lot of money, where he got to this place where there's some legitimacy to him, I think anyway, even though a lot of people don't, and they still say it's a circus. But here's the thing for me with that. 2 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, first of all, let me qualify it. I've never thought there was anything illegitimate or fixed about what Paul was doing. Now, for the first time, and it's both of them, it's not just Paul. For the first time, I wonder if this is a preordained setup and arranged situation. I don't have any proof at all other than my experience, my judgment, my instinct that 2 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, they were friendly and they would talk about fighting, Paul and Tyson. You probably remember.
Roy Jones, and Paul was on the undercard, and
Yeah.
they 1.6 million pay-per-views on that.
Yeah. And they were talking about fighting, and it never happened. But they were friendly. And then all of a sudden, fast forward 2 years later, whatever the time period has been, all of a sudden, now they're going to do it. I don't know. Like I said, Kevin, never before did I ever think that there was anything prearranged, anything. But now I'm just wondering, is there an agreement? Is there some kind of deal? I don't know. And if there's not, I'll say this. Why? I'm wondering why.
What is for you? Dana White said something to me that you might be interested in. This was not on this fight, but there was talk before that Tyson and Paul were going to fight. And I remember talking
Well, that's what I said. There was talk about a fight before, yeah.
And I asked Dana, because Dana is very close with Mike. And I asked Dana White, I said, why do you think Mike is doing this and still wanting to fight? And he goes, I talked to him about that. And he said, Dana, it's in my blood. I love to do this and I cannot stop. That was what Dana said.
Okay, fine. That's fair enough. That's fair. And there could be another element. He's a former champion, one of the best heavyweights ever, greatest combination maybe ever of pure speed, power on either side of the plate with either hand. All of that. Maybe there's a part that he's a historian. He's a guy that is a real historian and respects the old fighters. Maybe there's a part of him that says, hey, you shouldn't be, you're taking away from the purity of the sport. Even though I don't think that, I really don't think that, what's his name? I don't think that Jake Paul is doing that. But there's a possibility that maybe a part of how Tyson rationalizes why he would do this, besides the urge to still do it, is that, hey, there's no room for guys that haven't done this in a pure sense. This is a sport that you do it purely or you don't do it. You don't come in. You don't come in and pick your spots. You don't come in and invade this sport, my sport, and do this. I want to show that even at 58 or whatever age he is, that a real fighter is going to be the guy who wasn't a fighter from the beginning. Maybe that could be a tiny bit of it, maybe. But at the end of the day, I'll finish with this. If it's for anything outside of it being prearranged, I think that this could be the first time that Paul has made a mistake. He's been very smart. And I give him credit. He's faced what he had to face. But he's been very smart. This could be the first. Some people might think I'm crazy because the guy's 58 years old. But this is a guy who was one of the best punchers the heavyweight division ever saw, with the fastest hands the heavyweight division ever saw. We know one thing. The last thing to leave you is power. And even at 58, and we also know Tyson was always a fast starter. And we also know that, at 58, if you're fighting a guy that much younger, that your best chance would be early. I say that there's a chance that if it is on the up and up, could be the first time Jake Paul, a very smart Jake Paul, a real great businessman Jake Paul, and a guy who's worked hard to become the best fighter he could become. This is the first time he may have made a mistake. I think there's a chance he could get knocked out in the first 2 rounds.
Interesting. I'm going to end it and we're going to wrap with this. My take on it is this. Jake Paul is just he understands how to make money. He has that Midas touch. And so what he's doing in boxing is he's just using his promotional ability and the athletic ability he has to make money. And I think from Mike's standpoint, I think Mike misses the glory. But I think also, you dismissed it when you first commented, Teddy, but I think you can't just call any rich person says, hey, I can get you $20 million or whatever it's going to, he's ultimately going to make, that's a lot of freaking money. And that's hard to say no to when you say, I've done this all my life. I can do it one more time. And I at the end of the day, I think that's where Mike is at. Like, hey, you know what? I've done this for how many years, and this guy's going to pay me $20 million to do it against him. It's not like he's going out there and having to fight Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua.
You know what, Kevin? Here's all that matters. No matter what we think, they're going to make a lot of money. they're going to make a lot of money. A lot of people are going to watch it. No matter what we think, it's going to be a well-watched, tremendously watched, who knows to what numbers, but it's a lot of people are going to want to find out. Mm-hmm. And also it's a little bit of a pioneer sort of situation where it's going to be on Netflix, I guess.
Yes.
And that's a whole new direction for boxing.
Unbelievable. Well, Teddy, we appreciate your time as always. It's a privilege to get the chance to talk to you and get your expertise. I appreciate you so much and look forward to talking to you again.
My pleasure, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you.